So as you're considering what your big moonshots are, one of the ways that you will be able to get there, all of us will get there, is by really forming movements, joining together with others. And that's exactly what our next speakers have done. So, sadly, David Linn's wife struggled with cancer for 7 years. That's a battle that she lost, sadly, but it inspired him to take forward something that would transcend, to bring her memory forward into a movement. With that, he helped form Cycle for Survival. Now, I know that many of you here participate, and let me just put a plug in. If you don't, please get involved. Support the people who do. The people who are clapping could use your support. In fact, we all could use your support for what is a very, very powerful cause. Now, powerfully, David met another one of our speakers, Kotkins, who helps take his vision to an incredible scale. Together, they have helped raise more than $30 million for Memorial Sloan-Kettering, and hopefully with our support, they'll do even more. So please join me in welcoming them to the stage.
Thank you so much for that intro, and she did all of our work for us, so everyone can just get involved, and that'll be awesome. So like I said, I'm Katie, this is Dave, and we are thrilled to be here today to talk to you about Cycle for Survival, the movement to beat rare cancers. Now, Cycle for Survival is a really fun, high-energy, indoor team cycling event. And it's been pretty amazing to see what's been accomplished on these bikes. But we'd like to start by showing you what this movement looks like by the numbers, because they're actually pretty exciting. So the first Cycle for Survival event raised $250,000. But we've been able to grow exponentially since then to this past year when we raised over $14 million. So that's over $32 million in just 7 years. And Cycle for Survival is actually the fastest growing athletic fundraising event in the country. Now, we've been able to do this not just because we've increased our physical footprint, but also because we've created this grassroots networking effect that has led to more riders and more donors each year. So what does that look like? Well, it starts with the team captain who's excited to participate. They go to their friends, their families, their coworkers, and they recruit them to ride on their team. Then each of those people goes out to their own networks to fundraise. Now, all of these people know about Cycle for Survival, but they're not just learning about it from us. They're learning about it from the people that they know and trust. So what does Cycle for Survival actually look like? Well, as you can see here, we take over an Equinox club, we clear out all of the equipment, we put hundreds of bikes on the floor, and it's really more of a dance party on bikes than anything else. This isn't so serious, but most participants say that it's their favorite day of the year and that it's unlike anything they've ever experienced before. Now, even if we created the most amazing event, it wouldn't matter if we didn't have an effective model for impact. Everyone who participates in Cycle for Survival wants to make a real difference and fight back against cancer. And we do this efficiently and effectively by donating 100% of everything we raise to the most promising rare cancer research efforts. Now, there are two pillars that we stand on that make so much of this possible. First is Equinox Fitness Clubs. They're our founding partner. And not only is their entire company involved, but they let us take over their clubs from coast to coast, which is what's made our expansion possible. And the second is Memorial Sloan-Kettering Cancer Center. The Cycle for Survival is actually part of Memorial Sloan-Kettering, and each and every year, the center's leadership allocates every dollar raised to the most promising rare cancer research efforts, but they do it within 6 months of every event. So the dollars get from the events into research and to patients as fast as possible. And since we got started, Cycle for Survival has helped fund 85 different research studies and clinical trials. So here's just one example of that success. This is from a doctor who works in a disease called uveal melanoma. We've all heard of melanoma. Well, this is melanoma of the eye, a terrible disease, and patients with this disease have faced devastating outcomes. But because of Cycle for Survival, this doctor was able to receive funding for research, and that research has now led to a clinical trial, which is going to be offered in Canada, Europe, and across the United States. So these patients, for the first time, really have hope and an option. Now, because of all of this great momentum, we've gotten to do some pretty fun things. This is us ringing the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange last year with some of our participants and sponsors. We just took over Times Square, which was pretty cool. I don't love Times Square, I'm in New York, but this was actually a really fun day. And here is the Empire State Building that we lit up in our signature orange last year with Seth Meyers, who's been a longtime Cycle for Survival supporter, and you can see him here with some of the other famous paces who've participated, including Danny Glover, who was in San Francisco last year. These are some of the other sponsors who've made Cycle for Survival possible. And in the past year alone, we've been able to generate almost 600 million earned media impressions just through local and national coverage. So come February and March, we're expecting over 16,000 participants in 13 cities, including Palo Alto for the first time. We're very excited about that. So this movement is growing, and we're moving forward. But in order to understand how we got to where we are today and where we're going, we need to stop and take a step back, because Cycle for Survival was built on one very personal story.
It's a personal and emotional story, and I'm going to tell it to you from the bottom of my heart. To do so, I have to take you back about a dozen years. I met Jen in business school, actually at Harvard. But I do see some smirks over here. I have to admit, I didn't get into Stanford. I think it worked out okay for me, though. Since I met Jen, we fell in love, and as you see here, we got married in 2003. Everything was great in the world. We had great lives. We loved to travel, including this romantic getaway we took to watch soccer and the World Cup in Korea, and things couldn't have been better. But it was about a year after we got married that Jen started experiencing these terrible night sweats, these fevers. And after many, many tests, the doctors came to us and said, "You have this rare type of cancer." We knew we were in a tough situation, but as we started to research, we very much saw that Jen was not alone. I think you'll be really surprised to know that the latest stats are that 1 in every 2 men and 1 in every 3 women will be diagnosed with cancer at some point in your lifetime. As we further researched, we learned that these so-called rare cancers, when you add them up, they actually make up 50% of all cancer cases. But these are cancer types that all of us have heard of, and far too many of our friends and colleagues have had direct experience with. Pancreatic tumors, brain tumors, leukemia, lymphoma, pediatric cancers, all technically considered rare cancers. And when Jen and I looked out there, we saw that there were huge, huge events and organizations doing great, great things, but focused on breast cancer and prostate, the most common cancer types. But there was nothing that brought together these rare cancers on a national scale. And we decided that's where we need to make a difference, because these rare cancers don't get the funding and they don't have the treatment options. And we set out to make a difference. And I love this picture because, and it's hard for me to talk about everything Jen went through in those 7 years. 6 major surgeries, more than 20 different types of chemotherapy. Through almost all of it, she was smiling. And she loved to get on the spinning bike, on the indoor cycling bike, because if she was tired from her chemotherapy, she could just turn the tension nice and easy. If she was feeling a little stronger, she would push herself that much more. But in that 7th year, cancer came back with just such a vengeance that even the best doctors in the world said, "I'm sorry, there's nothing more we can do." And that is the emptiest feeling and the most difficult words that I could imagine anyone hearing from their doctor. As I think back on that time, I realized that I have a choice. And the choice that I make is to do everything I possibly can to make sure nobody else hears those words and has to go through that. And what I also saw was that everyone has their own Jen in their life. a friend, or a family member, their own reason for riding. And I really saw that when someone you care about receives a diagnosis of cancer, it's very much a helpless feeling. And I think what we've done with Cycle for Survival, with this national movement that Katie talked about, is we've provided a way for people to fight back, to do something, to take action. Because even though it's too late for Jen, it's not too late for the 3-year-old son of a dear friend of mine who just finished his treatment for rare cancer. And it's definitely not too late to do everything we possibly can to help the millions of other rare cancer patients.
And that's exactly what's happened. That's exactly what's happened. You can see from these faces. And if we go back to what we started with, the first team captains, that was Jen and Dave. But they went out to their friends, and then those people got more people involved, and people like all of you and companies got involved. And that's what's gotten us to the point of where we are today. Now, if there are 3 things that we've learned so far in this effort to build this movement, this is what we would say. First, sorry, the part with Jen kind of got me, I'm sorry. First, whatever you do, whatever activity you pick, you have to select something that either has mass appeal or that anybody can do. I promise almost anybody can get on a spin bike and sit there for 10 minutes. And we like to say, you can pedal hard or hardly pedal. It's a choice. The second is what Professor Sutton was talking about, is that measured growth can be good. If we had grown really fast and hadn't learned what our own success looked like, we would have lost the quality of our events, and we would have also sacrificed the very personal nature and intimate nature of Cycle for Survival, which leads me to number 3, and that's whatever you do, it has to be personal. Causes are personal, and cancer is incredibly personal. So whatever you do, and if people participate in Cycle for Survival, they are able to participate for that person in their lives who they know and love and ride for, but they're doing it as part of a community and as part of a family. So come February and March, we're gonna get back on our bikes, our weapons in this battle against cancer. And if any of you are inspired or wanna join us or join the people who are here who are already a part of Cycle for Survival, there are 3 things we'd love you to consider doing. First, start a team. Go to your friends, your family, your colleagues, your company. We would love to present at your company and start a team. And if you're somewhere where Cycle for Survival is not, you can create a satellite event and ride anywhere in the world. Second, become a sponsor and help make Cycle for Survival possible with us. And lastly, you heard the numbers from Dave, but if you know somebody in your life who has been touched by cancer who should know about Cycle for Survival, or a company that should get involved, please introduce us and make that connection.
As you guys know, I ride for Jen. But looking out here, I know I'm not alone. So for anyone out there who wants to fight back, either for yourself or for somebody else in your life, I just have one question. What are you waiting for? Join this national movement with us. And as we like to say, join the battle. Thank you.
Thank you.